Somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, right now, a ship is moving at walking speed. It has no passengers. It carries no cargo. Its crew works in 12-hour shifts, in the dark, in the rain, watching a single cable disappear over the stern into black water. That cable is why you have internet. Not satellites, not cell towers, not the cloud. A wire on the bottom of the ocean. And a ship slow enough that a jogger could outrun it. Here's the thing nobody tells you. When you send a message from New York to London, that message doesn't go up. It goes down. Down through a cable thinner than a garden hose, past the continental shelf, past the point where sunlight stops, all the way to the seafloor. Then it travels 3,000 miles through darkness and pressure and cold. And it arrives in under a second. There are more than 400 of these cables crossing every ocean on Earth. If you stretched them end to end, they would reach the moon and back 6 times. And the entire system is maintained by fewer than 60 ships. 60. Picture one of those ships. Not a cruise liner, not a battleship. A working vessel, painted gray and white, streaked with rust from months at sea. On its deck, a wheel 4 stories tall, turning slowly. Wrapped around that wheel, a cable. Thousands of miles of it, coiled in the belly of the ship like a sleeping animal. The ship moves at 3 miles per hour, slower than a bicycle. It cannot go faster. Go too fast and the cable snaps. Go too slow and it piles up on the seafloor in the wrong place. The crew feeds it over the side through a steel pipe that disappears into the water, and they watch the depth meter, and they wait. By the time the cable reaches the bottom of the deep ocean, it has traveled further down than Everest is tall. The pressure at that depth is the equivalent of stacking 50 commercial aircraft on 1 square inch of steel. And what they're lowering down there, the thing carrying the entire weight of global communication, is thinner than your thumb. On the outside, steel wire, then copper, then insulating gel, and at the very center, a strand of glass fiber thinner than a human hair. That hair-thin thread of glass is what carries your emails, your bank transfers, every stock trade happening right now between New York and Tokyo, the military communications of every major government on Earth. 1 strand of glass, 3 miles underwater, on a seafloor that has never been mapped in full. Here is why it works this way. The answer is not technology. It is physics. A satellite in geostationary orbit sits 22,000 miles above Earth. A signal sent through a satellite must travel 22,000 miles up, then 22,000 miles back down. Every single time. That distance adds delay, milliseconds, and in global financial markets, milliseconds are worth billions of dollars. High-frequency trading firms have paid hundreds of millions of dollars specifically to shave single-digit milliseconds off their connection times. Fiber optic cable through water is faster, not because of the cable itself, but because the distance is shorter. The route from New York to London along the seafloor is roughly 3,000 miles. The satellite route is 44,000. Physics wins. This is why in 1858, when there were no underwater robots, no GPS, no sonar maps, no way to see the seafloor at all, engineers loaded a ship with cable and started feeding it over the side into the Atlantic. Blind. When it broke, they spliced it. When it reached the bottom, they had no way to confirm it. They just kept going. The first transatlantic cable lasted 3 weeks before the insulation burned out. They tried again, and again, and again. Today, the cables are better. The ships are larger. The engineering is more precise. But the fundamental method is identical. You load a ship. You drive slow. You feed cable over the side. And you hope. But here's what they don't show you in any press release. You assumed these cables are owned by governments, by international bodies, by militaries protecting critical infrastructure. They're not. For most of the Internet's history, submarine cables were owned by telephone companies. Then, quietly, starting around 2010, A different buyer started appearing at the negotiating table. Not governments, not telecoms, tech companies. Google, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon. Today, these 4 companies own or co-own the majority of undersea cable capacity on Earth. Google alone has stakes in more than 30 submarine cable systems. The cable connecting the east coast of the United States to France? Google. The cable connecting Los Angeles to Japan? Google and Meta. The entire eastern coast of Africa, a continent of 1.4 billion people coming online for the first time? Google is building that cable too. Think about what that means. When you watch a YouTube video, the data travels through a cable owned by YouTube's parent company. When you load Instagram, the data moves through a cable that Instagram's parent company paid to build. They are not renting capacity on someone else's infrastructure. They built their own ocean floor. This is not charity, it is control. If you own the cable, you control the speed. You control who gets priority. You control the price of access. And you own something that took years and billions of dollars to build, that no competitor can quickly replicate, sitting at the bottom of an ocean where no one can touch it. A warehouse can be built in 18 months. A factory can move countries. But a submarine cable system takes 4 years to plan, hundreds of millions to lay, and sits on the seafloor for 25 years. It is the most permanent infrastructure on Earth, and 4 Silicon Valley companies own most of it. And the ships, the 60 vessels that actually lay and repair all of it, 2 companies control the majority of that market. Alcatel Submarine Networks, French, with ties to European defense contracts. Subcom, American, with documented relationships with the U.S. Navy. When a country needs a cable laid, they call one of 2 phone numbers. When a cable breaks, the same 2 companies decide how fast it gets fixed. 60 ships, 2 companies, and 4 tech giants who own the ocean floor. On January 26, 2022, a volcano erupted near the island of Tonga. The seismic wave snapped the single submarine cable connecting the island to the outside world. Within hours, 100,000 people lost all internet access. They lost the ability to call for help, coordinate aid, communicate with rescue teams. The only repair ship capable of reaching them was on the other side of the ocean. It took 5 weeks. 5 weeks of near-total isolation. Because one cable broke. Because there was no backup. Because no one had built a second one. Now, scale that up. There are 6 places on Earth where dozens of submarine cables converge into narrow geographic corridors. 6 choke points. The Luzon Strait between Taiwan and the Philippines, the Strait of Malacca, the Red Sea, the English Channel, the Egyptian coast near Alexandria, where nearly every cable connecting Europe to Asia runs through a stretch of water barely wider than a city street. In March 2024, 2 cables in the Red Sea were cut. Within days, 25% of all data traffic between Europe and Asia was gone. Internet speeds dropped across multiple countries. Financial systems slowed. Rerouting took days. 2 cables, a quarter of the world's intercontinental internet. Gone. The U.S. military has known about this vulnerability since the Cold War. Declassified documents show Soviet submarines were specifically tasked not with attacking ships, not with nuclear deterrence, but with finding and cutting undersea cables. Today, Russian submarine activity near North Atlantic cable routes has increased to levels not seen since the 1980s. NATO has publicly flagged it. No one has announced a solution. And here's the detail that should stop you cold. You do not need a submarine to cut a cable. You do not need a missile or a cyber attack or a billion-dollar operation. In shallow coastal water, where cables run less than 1 meter below the sand, all you need is a fishing trawler and a dragging anchor. The coordinates of every major cable route are publicly available. You can find them on maritime planning maps used by any ship captain in the world. And accidental cuts from dragging anchors are, right now, the single most common cause of cable damage on Earth. More than earthquakes, more than fishing nets. Anchors. The nervous system of modern civilization runs through geography a snorkeler could reach. And there are 60 ships to guard all of it. Those 60 ships are aging. The companies that build them are contracting. The number of people in the world qualified to splice a deep ocean fiber optic cable on a rocking deck, underwater, at pressure, in complete darkness, can be counted in the hundreds. Not thousands, hundreds. There is no international treaty protecting submarine cables with real enforcement. There is no military alliance dedicated to undersea infrastructure. The United Nations has agreements on paper. No one patrols the seafloor. There is no backup system. There is no second internet. There is no plan B. There is a wire thinner than your hair, running through the darkest and most unreachable places on Earth. There are 60 ships watching over it, and 4 companies who have decided that owning it is worth more than telling you they own it. The next time your video buffers, your app freezes, your call drops, ask yourself where the data was going. Not up, down, 3 miles down, through the cold and the dark, along a wire that a fishing anchor could snap. And somewhere above it, moving at 3 miles per hour, a slow ship is keeping watch over the thing the entire modern world depends on. Whether that's enough is a question no one in power seems ready to answer.